I'm Summer Lopez, and I was still rubbing the sting on my cheek when the lawyer leaned forward and looked straight at my mother. The entire dining room froze, over 30 relatives holding their breath because no one had ever cut her off like that. But in that moment, nothing else mattered except his low, calm words. It had all exploded just minutes earlier at our family's annual fall gathering in the grand dining room overlooking the lake at our Adirondacks compound. My sister stood up, slammed a stack of papers on the table, and said coldly, "Sign the deed to the $8.4 million lakeside estate over to me right now." I refused. My mother shot up from her chair and slapped me hard across the face in front of everyone. She hissed, "You have no choice. Do what she says." The lawyer stared at her and whispered, just loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Do you even know who the real owner is?" Instantly, the entire room went dead silent. Every pair of eyes turned to me. If you've ever been through family drama like this, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. We heal together, one story at a time. That morning, I drove through roads lined with golden pine leaves on my way to the lakeside compound in the Adirondacks. I had flown in from Milan Fashion Week the night before, still wearing the black blazer and tailored pants from my final show fitting. My suitcase was packed with fabric samples and sketches instead of casual clothes. The old gravel driveway crunched under the tires as I pulled up to the main house. The place looked the same as always, tall windows reflecting the lake, smoke curling from the stone chimney, but the air felt heavier than I remembered. The annual fall gathering Grandpa used to host was already underway when I walked into the grand dining room. A long wooden table was set for more than 30 relatives, crystal glasses catching the light, the smell of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie filling the space. Mom sat at the head, posture straight, wine glass in hand. My sister Lauren was right beside her, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. My cousin Justin hovered nearby, nodding at whatever Lauren whispered to him. Relatives murmured as I took an empty seat near the end. I caught fragments. The famous one who's never here, always off at those fashion shows, barely visits anymore. I kept my face neutral. I had heard versions of this for years. Conversation stayed light at first. Cousins talked about kids, uncles compared new boats, but I felt the shift coming. Lauren cleared her throat and leaned forward. Everyone quieted. She started small, commenting on how nice it was that the compound stayed in family hands. Then she turned to me. "You're so busy with runways in Paris and Milan, you hardly ever come back. It only makes sense for the estate to go to someone who actually lives here, who takes care of it day to day." A few aunts nodded. Justin added, "Yeah, exactly, someone who's around." I set my fork down. Grandpa's estate isn't up for discussion like that. Lauren's eyes narrowed. "It should be. You're never here. You don't need all this space. You have your penthouse in Manhattan, right? The one you're always posting about?" More murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Mom sipped her wine, watching me over the rim. I stayed calm. Grandpa had his reasons for everything he did. It's not ours to divide up based on who shows up more. Lauren laughed sharply. "Reasons? He was old. He wasn't thinking clearly toward the end, and you took advantage of that, flying in for quick visits, sending pretty cards. Meanwhile, the rest of us were actually here." Justin chimed in again. "Come on, be reasonable. Signed it over. It's fair." The room leaned in, waiting for my response. I looked straight at Lauren. "No." Mom's chair scraped back. Her voice rose. "You selfish girl! After everything this family has done for you, paying for your fancy schools, letting you chase dreams while the rest of us held things together, you owe us this." Heads turned between us. Someone whispered, "Oh no." Lauren slid a folder across the table. "We even had papers drawn up. Just sign, make it easy." I didn't touch them. "I'm not signing anything." Mom's face flushed red. She stood fully now, her hand raised. "You will do what's right for this family." The slap landed hard, echoing off the high ceiling. Gasps spread like wildfire. A few cousins covered their mouths. Justin smirked for a split second before looking away. Mom leaned in close. "You have no choice. Do what she says." The lawyer, Mr. Whitaker, who had been quietly observing from the side, rose slowly. He fixed his gaze on Mom and spoke just loud enough for the table to hear. "Do you even know who the real owner is?" The room felt completely silent. Forks froze midway to mouths. Breathing seemed to stop. Whitaker didn't raise his voice further. He simply said, "Let's all calm down. We'll continue this discussion when emotions aren't running so high." No one argued. Chairs pushed back one by one. Relatives avoided eye contact as they filed out toward the living room or the deck. Conversations dropped to awkward mumbles. The heavy front door opened and closed repeatedly until only a handful remained. I stayed seated, my cheek burning, staring at the untouched papers in the center of the table. As the sound of the last car faded down the pine-lined drive, Mr. Whitaker motioned for me to stay back by the fireplace in the living room. He waited until the front door clicked shut behind the final relative, then quietly closed the double doors to the dining room hallway. The fire had settled into steady embers, casting a warm but dim glow across the worn Persian rug and the rows of framed family photos lining the mantel. Some showed Grandpa in his younger days on the lake dock. Others captured holidays long past. Whitaker placed his leather briefcase on the low oak coffee table, clicked the latches open, and removed a thick, well-worn binder filled with tabbed sections. He sat in the armchair opposite me, adjusting his glasses before speaking. "Your grandfather was always methodical, Summer. 15 years ago, right after you moved to New York to study fashion design, he established a revocable living trust. He did it discreetly through my office, without telling anyone else in the family." I shifted forward on the sofa, the leather creaking softly. My mind raced back to that time. Tiny apartment in the village, late nights sketching, first internships that paid nothing but experience. Whitaker continued, turning to the first marked page. "The trust transferred ownership of the entire Adirondacks lakeside compound, the Manhattan penthouse you used during Fashion Week, the upstate farmland he bought in the 90s, and his investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $2 million, directly to you as the sole beneficiary." He paused to let the numbers settle. "There are multiple protection clauses built in. No contests allowed without facing substantial legal penalties, no forced sales, no divisions. It's locked tight." I stared at the documents he slid toward me. Signatures dated 15 years earlier, notarized seals, Grandpa's careful script in the margins. "Why so early?" I asked quietly. "I was barely 22. I hadn't proven anything yet." Whitaker folded his hands. "That's exactly why. He saw your independence as strength, not absence. You were the only one who kept real contact going. Those handmade holiday cards you designed and mailed from whatever city your shows took you to, London one year, Tokyo the next. The video calls you squeezed in between fittings, even when it meant waking at dawn in Milan to catch him before dinner here. Booking last-minute flights home for his birthdays, or just because you sensed he needed company." His voice softened. "He told me once, in confidence, that you never made him feel forgotten. The others' visits grew rarer as time passed." I swallowed hard. Grandpa had watched the family dynamics shift long before anyone else admitted it. Mom's clear preference for Lauren, the one who stayed close, who fit the expected role. Two moments stood out clearly now. One sticky July when we were teens, Lauren claimed the master suite with its private deck over the water. Mom insisted it was only fair, since Lauren had friends staying over. I was reassigned to the narrow guest room behind the kitchen, its window facing the boathouse wall. Grandpa said nothing at dinner, but later I found him on the porch, staring out at the lake. He handed me a cold soda and sat beside me in silence for an hour. The second memory was sharper. I had landed a breakthrough opportunity, an assistant position at a major show, but the flight from New York to Paris would wipe out my savings. Rent was due, portfolio prints weren't cheap. Then a plain envelope appeared at my door. Inside was the exact airfare amount, plus extra for meals. A short note in Grandpa's handwriting read, "Create something the world hasn't seen yet." No signature was needed. I never told anyone where the money came from. Whitaker turned another page. He anticipated conflict. That's why the trust was structured this way, to shield you from pressure from anyone trying to claim you didn't deserve it because you built a life elsewhere. He pointed to specific clauses, anti-contest provisions, penalties for frivolous challenges, requirements for any changes to have my sole approval. Legally, your mother and sister have no standing. They assumed standard inheritance rules would apply after his passing, but those rules never came into play here. I traced Grandpa's initials on one corner, faint but unmistakable. At the bottom of another page, his handwriting appeared again. For Summer, she understands value beyond money. The weight of it hit me. All those years I thought I was simply staying close out of love. It turned out Grandpa saw it as evidence of character. Whitaker gathered the copies he had prepared for me. Deeds, trust declarations, account summaries. You're in control now, but expect pushback. Today was only the beginning. I stood there, the folder heavy in my arms. The fire popped once, sending a brief flare across the room. A strength I hadn't felt earlier settled in my chest. I walked out of the living room carrying the proof, fully aware that everyone else had been operating under a 15-year-old misunderstanding. Late that afternoon, I drove through the main gate and parked in front of the house by the lake. The compound was quiet now, almost unnaturally so after the earlier chaos. No other vehicles remained in the circular drive. The wind rustled through the tall pines surrounding the property, carrying the crisp scent of approaching winter. The lake water lapped gently against the private dock, a sound I had known since childhood. I stepped out of the car, gravel crunching under my shoes, and used my old key to let myself into the main house. The foyer felt unchanged. High ceilings, hardwood floors, the faint echo of footsteps. Sunlight slanted through the large windows overlooking the water, casting long patterns across the furniture. I didn't linger. I headed straight down the hallway to Grandpa's former study, the room tucked at the back with views of the boathouse and forested shoreline. Dust had settled thickly on the bookshelves lined with old nautical charts and leather-bound volumes he collected. His massive oak desk sat in the center, papers scattered haphazardly, as if no one had organized anything since his passing. Empty coffee mugs, ringed with stains, sat nearby, along with a few unopened envelopes piled in one corner. The space carried a sense of abandonment that hadn't been there when he was alive. I tried the top drawers first, locked as expected. Then I moved to the floor-level cabinet on the right side, the one concealing the built-in safe he had installed decades ago. Kneeling down, I entered the combination he had shared only with me, the month and year of his wedding anniversary. The mechanism clicked open smoothly. Inside, folders were packed tightly, their edges curled from humidity. Bank correspondence dominated the top layer. I pulled out the heaviest file, labeled simply Property Loans. The primary document was a mortgage agreement dated 8 years back, a substantial loan well into 6 figures, secured against the full Adirondacks lakeside compound. Mom's signature appeared as the borrower, claiming ownership based on what could only have been an outdated probate copy of Grandpa's pre-trust will, the version everyone had assumed was final. I scanned the terms. Interest rates were reasonable at origination, but payments had become irregular. Missed deadlines were marked with red stamps. Accrued penalties were listed on attached schedules. Toward the back, the most recent bank letter stood out, a final notice of default demanding immediate cure or the initiation of foreclosure proceedings within the next 30 days. They had pledged collateral they no longer controlled. Further down in the safe, behind the mortgage packet, lay a plain manila envelope with future planning written on the tab in Lauren's precise handwriting. I opened it on the desk. The contents included a fully drafted deed transfer for the compound, naming Justin as grantee. Mom's signature was pre-filled, forged closely enough to fool a casual review, but discrepancies were visible upon closer inspection. Slight variations in loop height, pressure differences. Margin notes detailed the rationale. Reduce inheritance tax liability through a gifting structure. Allow quiet division of proceeds among core family members. Additional pages outlined intended upgrades. a complete kitchen remodel with high-end appliances, expansion of the guest cottage for rental, a potential new floating dock system with boat lifts. Contractor bids were attached. Several marked deposit paid in Lauren's hand. Mixed among these were recent credit statements, multiple cards at or near their limits, charges for European shopping trips timed with my own show schedules, luxury vehicle leases, private club memberships, all predicated on eventual estate's liquidity to cover balances. I spread the materials across the desk's surface. Patterns emerged clearly. Spending had escalated steadily as property values climbed in the area. New lines of credit opened to bridge gaps, withdrawals from other accounts to service minimums, confidence that the compound's equity would resolve everything when needed. But the trust rendered the primary security invalid from the start. The bank held a lien on air. I settled into Grandpa's old leather chair, the one positioned for lake views, its armrests worn smooth from years of use. The seat still carried his faint scent of pipe tobacco. Holding the foreclosure warning letter, I pieced together the urgency behind today's confrontation. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate. Payments looming, bank inquiries possibly already underway. My signature on a transfer to Justin would create a paper trail suggesting a legitimate ownership change, potentially delaying or complicating any challenge. I dug deeper into the safe. Another folder revealed a second equity line against the upstate farmland, also predicated on the old will assumptions. More warnings were tucked inside. Overdraft notices from checking accounts used for daily expenses. The scale surprised me. Not occasional overspending, but systematic reliance on a future inheritance that never materialized as expected. Renovations started but unfinished, deposits non-refundable, obligations mounting. Sunlight faded outside, turning the lake's surface from gold to gray. Shadows lengthened across the study floorboards. I photographed key pages with my phone for records, then returned everything to its original place, except the most critical documents, which I secured in my bag. Standing up, the house seemed to carry extra weight, years of decisions built on a faulty foundation. The quiet no longer felt peaceful. It felt like waiting. I locked the safe, wiped away fingerprints from the dust, and left the study exactly as I had found it. The sound of tires on the gravel drive pulled me out of my thoughts. I closed the folder in my hands and stepped into the hallway just as the front door swung open. Mom, Lauren, and Justin walked in, faces still flushed from whatever conversations they'd had after the gathering. The air shifted immediately, heavy and charged. Lauren spotted me first. She strode forward, heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. "We're not done talking. You need to sign those papers and end this nonsense." She stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes narrowed tight. "You think you can just walk away after that scene? Everyone's upset. Fix it." Mom followed close behind, clutching her purse like a shield. Her expression softened into something practiced, eyes glistening, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, please, you're tearing this family apart. All we're asking is for you to think about us for once. After everything we've sacrificed, everything we've been through together, don't do this to us." She reached out a hand, tears beginning to spill. "I can't lose this home. It's all I have left of your grandfather, of our life here. You're breaking my heart." Justin hung back near the door, hands in his pockets, his gaze mostly fixed on the floor but flicking up occasionally. He didn't speak, just watched the exchange with a tight jaw. I moved to the small side table in the entryway and set down the stack of documents I'd brought from the study. The loan files, the forged transfer draft, the bank warnings. They landed with a deliberate thud. Lauren's eyes darted to the papers. "What's that supposed to be?" I looked at each of them in turn. I know everything. Mom froze mid-reach. Lauren's mouth opened slightly. "The bank will know soon. 30 days to move out." Silence stretched thick. No questions, no elaboration from me. Lauren recovered first. Her voice rose, sharp and loud. "You can't be serious. This is our home. You don't even live here. You're off jet-setting to shows while we maintain everything." She stepped closer, finger jabbing the air. "You owe us. After all the years we looked after Grandpa when you were too busy chasing fame." Mom's tears turned into sobs. She sank onto the nearby bench, hands covering her face. "How can you say that? I'm your mother. I raised you, and now you throw us out on the street? What kind of daughter does that?" Her voice cracked on every word, shoulders shaking. "Think about what people will say. The scandal. Please, baby, don't make me beg." Justin finally spoke, low and uncertain. "Maybe we can work something out, split things fairly, or—" He trailed off when I didn't respond. Lauren began pacing, fury building. "This is insane. You're punishing us for what? For staying, for being here when he needed family. Sign the damn papers and let's move on." Mom reached for my arm, fingers trembling. "If you ever loved me, you won't do this. We can fix it together. Just give us time." I stood still, arms at my sides. Lauren's volume climbed higher. "You're destroying everything Grandpa built. He'd be ashamed." Mom wailed softly. "Don't let it end like this. We're all that's left." Justin edged backward, eyes returning to the papers, but said nothing more. I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I didn't soften. Lauren lunged toward the table as if to grab the documents. I placed my hand flat on top. She stopped short, breathing hard. Mom looked up through tears. "At least talk to us. Explain why you're being so cruel." I held their gazes one last time. Then I turned and walked down the hall, past the study, toward the back door leading to the lake path. Behind me, Lauren's shouts echoed off the walls. Mom's pleas mixed in, desperate and broken. Justin remained silent. I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, thick envelopes from the bank started arriving at their house near Albany. I was in Manhattan when the first reports came through from the management company I'd hired. They forwarded scans of correspondence addressed to Mom, official letters on bank letterhead stamped urgent. The investigation began quickly once I sent anonymous tip documents proving the compound had never been valid collateral. Auditors confirmed the trust transfer years earlier. The mortgage, built on outdated assumptions, became unenforceable against the lakeside property. But the fallout spread. The bank shifted focus to other assets tied to Mom's and Lauren's names. Their primary residence outside Albany, a modest but comfortable colonial they'd refinanced multiple times, fell under immediate review. Default notices followed. Foreclosure proceedings were initiated within days. Credit agencies updated records fast. Joint accounts were frozen. Lines of credit closed. Scores plummeted, hundreds of points lost overnight. New applications were denied automatically. Even basic utilities were flagged for deposits. Lauren's job at the local real estate firm ended abruptly. Whispers began among colleagues and clients after a cousin mentioned the family dispute at a community event. Word traveled quickly through neighborhood networks, chamber meetings, open houses. By the time management called her in, listings had dried up. The termination cited reputational risk to the brand, no severance beyond the standard package. Justin distanced himself almost immediately. Phone calls went unanswered, social media connections were removed, any digital trail linking him to the transfer draft disappeared. Files deleted, messages unsent. He claimed ignorance when pressed by mutual acquaintances, insisting he had only been offering casual advice. No one pushed further. Mom tried reaching out first. 3 calls in one evening. Voicemails shaky, pleas for understanding, promises to repay somehow, questions about whether I could speak to someone at the bank. I let them go to voicemail, then blocked the number. Lauren's messages came next. Texts at odd hours, accusations of betrayal, reminders of childhood sacrifices, demands for explanations I supposedly owed as a daughter and sister. Threats of legal action that never materialized. Each message grew shorter, angrier. I blocked her too. The management firm handled the rest efficiently. A professional team was on site within the week, inventorying contents, changing locks, coordinating maintenance. Security cameras were upgraded. Rental inquiries for off-season use were already coming in. The penthouse was leased to a corporate client for Fashion Week. The farmland was contracted to a trusted local operator. Statements arrived regularly. Income projections, expense reports, tax filings prepared. Everything ran smoothly, detached from the personal chaos. Occasional updates from distant relatives trickled in, second-hand accounts of moving trucks at the Albany house, belongings boxed hastily, mom staying with an aunt temporarily, Lauren spotted apartment hunting alone. No direct contact was attempted after the blocks. I reviewed the reports from my studio, sketches spread across the table for an upcoming collection. The numbers were clean, predictable, no surprises. The distance felt final. No more unexpected calls, no explanations needed, no pull to intervene. The consequences unfolded exactly as the law allowed, impersonal, thorough, irreversible. One late fall afternoon, with lake wind whipping red pine needles across the road, I drove to the small cemetery near the compound. The gates were unlocked as always, the gravel path crunching under my tires. I parked beneath the old oaks and walked the short distance to Grandpa's plot. The stone was simple, his name, dates, a short line about loving the water. Fresh dirt had settled long ago, now wildflowers edged the grass. I stood there in the chill, coat pulled tight. The breeze carried mist off the lake, cool against my face. No long speech came out. I didn't rehash the arguments or the fallout, just quiet words, barely above the wind. Thank you for giving me the tools to protect myself. The leaves rustled overhead, like an answer. Time passed after everything unraveled. Weekends now belonged to me alone at the compound. I'd drive up Friday evenings after wrapping shows or fittings, unlock the main house, and let the silence settle. Mornings began with coffee on the deck, watching fog lift off the water. No schedules forced on me, no voices questioning my choices, just the steady rhythm of waves against the dock posts. Afternoons meant long walks along the shoreline trails Grandpa had maintained himself. I followed the same paths, boots sinking into pine needles, breathing air sharp with cold. The boathouse stood empty but secure, canoes covered for winter. Evenings were for the fireplace. I lit it the way he taught me, kindling first, logs crossed, and sat with a book or sketches spread out. Flames cracked and popped. Outside, stars came clear over the lake, brighter than in the city. Peace came from clearly drawn lines, cutting off those who only took and expected. The demands of guilt gave way, leaving space for something real. No more energy was drained justifying my life, my career, my absence, or my presence. Regret never surfaced. Not when reports showed the Albany house sold at auction, not when distant updates mentioned new apartments or job hunts, not even when old mutual contacts asked if I'd reconsider. The choice was the only one that preserved dignity. Grandpa understood that he built safeguards not for wealth alone, but for freedom from manipulation. Standing at the grave longer than I'd planned, I placed a small bundle of pine branches at the base, something natural, nothing store-bought. The wind picked up, scattering needles across the stone. I turned back toward the car. The drive home would soon be dark, headlights cutting through the trees. But the compound waited whenever I needed it. Quiet, maintained, mine. Self-respect and independence, that was the true gift he left. Enforcing boundaries honored it best. No second thoughts, no looking back. The lake wind followed me all the way to the gate.